I found out my wife was cheating on me with my sister, and it destroyed everything. I didn't suspect anything at first. Life felt routine, predictable even. My wife, Emily, and I had been married for 5 years. We met in college, hit it off fast, and got married within 2 years of graduating. Things weren't perfect, but whose life is? We argued about bills, chores, and who left the bathroom light on. Nothing major. Emily and my sister, Sarah, got along well. Too well, maybe. They became fast friends after Emily and I got serious. It made sense. Sarah was always charming, the life of every gathering, the kind of person who could make a stranger feel like a best friend within minutes. She was my little sister, just 2 years younger than me, and we'd been close growing up. At first, I liked that they got along. It made family gatherings easier. They'd whisper jokes, laugh at things I didn't catch, and exchange texts now and then. Harmless. I thought it was good for Emily to have a friend she could confide in, especially someone who already knew me so well. Then things started to feel off. Emily's phone was always face down. She'd step out of the room to take calls or suddenly decide to go on girls' nights with Sarah more often. At first, I didn't question it. They were close friends. Why wouldn't they hang out? One day, I was home early from work. Emily wasn't expecting me. I found her on the couch, texting furiously, smiling at her phone. I made a joke about her having a secret boyfriend, and she laughed, too hard, like I'd hit a nerve. She quickly put her phone down, face down as always. That was the first time I felt it. That small, sharp prick of doubt. Once you suspect something, everything feels suspicious. It's like your brain starts piecing together a puzzle you didn't even know existed. Little things I'd ignored started standing out. Emily's phone habits changed more. She added a lock screen password, something she'd never bothered with before. When I'd sit next to her, she'd tilt her screen away, even if she was just scrolling through social media. It was subtle, but it gnawed at me. Sarah, too, was acting differently. We used to talk a lot, texts, calls, casual meetups. But suddenly, she was distant. Conversations were shorter. She always seemed busy when I tried to make plans. When we did see each other, she acted like she was hiding something. Nervous laughter, avoiding eye contact, fidgeting with her phone. One night, Emily said she was going out for drinks with Sarah. I didn't think much of it until I remembered Sarah had mentioned earlier that she had to work late. I casually texted Sarah to ask how work was going. No reply. Hours passed. No response from Sarah, and Emily wasn't home yet. I told myself I was being paranoid, but I stayed up. When Emily finally got back, she smelled like perfume, not hers. Something floral and unfamiliar. I asked how the night was. She gave a vague answer about drinks, laughter, and catching up. I nodded, pretending it was fine. But I knew something was wrong. I decided to pay more attention. I wasn't ready to confront either of them without proof. It felt crazy even thinking about it. My wife and my sister. No. That didn't happen in real life. I started checking Emily's phone when I could, but she was careful. Messages deleted, browser history cleared. It was like she knew I'd be looking. So, I turned my attention to Sarah. One weekend, we had a family barbecue at my parents' place. Emily and Sarah were both there. I watched them closely, unnoticed by anyone else. They didn't act like people having an affair, not openly. But there were glances. Quick, stolen looks when they thought no one was watching. Emily's hand brushed Sarah's arm a little too long during a joke. Sarah laughed a little too hard at nothing. After that day, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I installed a basic tracking app on Emily's phone. It wasn't hard, she left her phone unattended sometimes. I told myself it was just to ease my mind, to prove my suspicions wrong. But it didn't. The app showed me everything. Emily wasn't meeting Sarah at the coffee shop like she claimed. She was going to random apartments, sometimes hotels. My heart sank every time I checked. I still thought maybe it was someone else, some stranger I didn't know. That would have been easier. Then one night, Emily said she was going to Sarah's place to catch up and watch movies. Perfect. I waited until she left, then drove to Sarah's apartment. I parked a little down the street, heart racing, palms sweaty. Emily's car was there. I waited. An hour passed. Lights were on in Sarah's apartment. I couldn't take it anymore. I walked up, my footsteps heavy. I didn't even knock, I had a spare key to Sarah's place. I opened the door and walked in. They didn't hear me at first. They were in the living room, tangled together on the couch. Not just sitting close, kissing. Clothes half off. Laughing softly. They froze when they saw me. I didn't say anything. I just stared. My brain couldn't process it. My wife. My sister. Together. Emily stood up, trying to explain, words spilling out fast, but I didn't hear them. Sarah looked like she wanted to disappear. I turned around and left. The days after felt like a blur. Emily tried to talk to me, sent messages, called over and over. Sarah did the same. I ignored them both. I didn't want to hear excuses. Eventually, Emily showed up at our apartment. I let her in because I needed answers. She cried, said it just happened, that they didn't mean for it to go this far. She claimed it started as emotional support and got complicated. I listened, but none of it mattered. The damage was done. I packed a bag and left that night. I didn't speak to Sarah for months. Our parents noticed the tension but didn't know why. I didn't tell them. It wasn't their burden. Emily and I divorced. It was messy but necessary. I blocked Sarah for a long time. Eventually, she reached out with a long message apologizing, explaining how she hated herself for what happened. I read it but didn't respond. Time passed. I moved on, started over. New apartment, new routine. Trust was hard after that, but I managed. Sometimes, when it's late and quiet, I still think about it. Not with anger, but with disbelief. How life can twist in ways you never expect. How the people you trust most can become strangers overnight. I dated 4 girls at the same time and they didn't know about each other's existence. It wasn't something I planned. I didn't set out to date 4 girls at the same time, but life has a way of throwing opportunities at you when you least expect it. It all started with Lisa. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. She was easy to talk to, down to earth, and we connected quickly. We started dating casually, nothing too serious at first. A few weeks later, I met Rachel at a party. She was the opposite of Lisa, outgoing, full of energy, and always looking for the next adventure. It didn't feel like I was cheating or doing anything wrong. I wasn't committed to either of them exclusively, and I liked the balance they brought to my life. Then came Mia. I met her at the gym. She was confident, funny, and we shared a passion for fitness. She had a different vibe, more laid back and spontaneous. Again, I didn't think much of it. I was enjoying myself, and so were they. Finally, I met Emma through a mutual friend. She was sharp, witty, and we had deep conversations that I didn't have with the others. By then, I was juggling 4 relationships without any real plan, but it felt manageable. They all filled different parts of my life, and I liked it that way. Managing 4 relationships required effort, but it wasn't as overwhelming as it sounds. Each girl had her own schedule, her own interests, and they didn't overlap much. Lisa enjoyed quiet nights in, Rachel loved the nightlife, Mia was into outdoor activities, and Emma preferred intellectual conversations over coffee. The key was organization. I kept a detailed calendar on my phone to avoid double booking. Texting required attention. I had to make sure I didn't mix up details, but it became a habit over time. I even found it exciting, like a challenge to keep things balanced. What surprised me was how natural it felt. I wasn't trying to deceive anyone for personal gain. I genuinely enjoyed spending time with each of them, and I made sure to give them attention and care. In a way, it made me more present because I had to focus on the moment with each person. Part 3: Cracks in the Plan. Eventually, small cracks started to appear. It was bound to happen, but I didn't worry too much. One day, I was having lunch with Rachel when we ran into Mia. I played it cool, introduced Rachel as a friend from work. Mia didn't seem suspicious, but I could tell she was curious. She asked a few questions later, and I gave her simple, believable answers. Another time, Emma mentioned she'd met someone who knew me, Rachel's friend from a party. I shrugged it off, acting like it wasn't a big deal. It wasn't, really. People have mutual connections all the time. I figured as long as I stayed calm, everything would be fine. The closest call came when I accidentally sent Lisa a text meant for Rachel. It wasn't anything too revealing, just a message about plans for the weekend, but it mentioned a place I'd never been to with Lisa. She asked about it, and I made up a quick story. She seemed satisfied with the answer. I knew I was walking a fine line, but part of me enjoyed it. It kept things interesting. Things unraveled when Emma started asking more questions. She was sharp, the kind of person who noticed small details. She confronted me one day, asking if I was seeing other people. I didn't lie, I just dodged the question, saying I wasn't ready for a serious relationship. Emma didn't take that well. She dug deeper, found out about Rachel through mutual friends, and everything snowballed from there. Emma told Rachel, Rachel told Mia, and Mia confronted Lisa. It all came crashing down faster than I expected. The reactions were mixed. Some were angry, some were hurt, and some didn't say much at all. They all cut me off, and that was that. After it was over, I didn't feel regret. I wasn't proud of how it ended, but I didn't see it as a mistake. It was an experience, one that taught me a lot about people, relationships, and even myself. I learned how to manage time, communicate effectively, and adapt to different situations. I discovered the excitement of living in the moment and balancing different dynamics. It kept life interesting, and I don't regret any of it. Not every experience needs to end perfectly to have value. Sometimes, the chaos, the lessons, and even the fallout are worth it. Life isn't about always doing the right thing, it's about living, taking risks, and seeing where it leads. Would I do it again? Probably not in the same way. But I don't look back with guilt. It was a part of my life, and it made things more interesting. And honestly, I wouldn't change a thing. I got drunk at my cousin's wedding and accidentally slept with the bride. It was a message from Mom, don't forget about your cousin Jake's wedding next month. It's going to be a big one. You'll come, right? Jake and I weren't exactly close. We grew up together, but after high school, our lives went in different directions. He became the successful one, fancy job, perfect smile, and now, the perfect fiancée, Amanda. I'd met her once at a family barbecue. She seemed cool, out of Jake's league, but I didn't think much of it. The wedding was set at some overpriced countryside venue. My plan was simple: show up, smile through the small talk, get drunk enough to survive the awkward family dynamics, and leave without making a scene. Easy. What I didn't expect was for everything to go off the rails before the cake was even cut. The reception was held in this massive hall filled with flowers, string lights, and people I barely recognized. The ceremony itself was your typical, I do, routine, Jake looking smug, Amanda looking stunning, the whole family teary-eyed like it was the royal wedding. But then came the reception. And more importantly, the open bar. I made friends with the bartender immediately. After a few too many whiskeys, I was feeling invincible. That's when I saw her, Amanda. The bride. She was standing near the bar, alone for a moment, her perfect white dress catching the light. I don't know what possessed me, but I made a joke as I passed by. Something dumb about wedding cake or overpriced centerpieces. She laughed. Not just a polite chuckle, but a real laugh. We started talking. It was harmless at first. Just casual banter, fueled by alcohol. Turns out, she wasn't as picture-perfect as she seemed. She complained about the wedding stress, the pressure from Jake's family, and how fake the whole thing felt. I nodded along, offering sarcastic comments that made her laugh even more. One drink turned into 3. Then 4. Then we were outside, away from the crowd, still talking, the air thick with that buzz you get when you know you're crossing a line. Then she kissed me. I should have stopped it. I didn't. I woke up the next morning in a strange hotel room. My head was pounding, my mouth felt like sandpaper, and for a solid minute, I had no idea where I was. Then I turned over. Amanda was next to me. The bride. My cousin's wife. Reality hit me like a truck. The wedding dress was crumpled on the floor, her makeup smudged, and my suit jacket was hanging off a lamp like it was trying to escape the scene of the crime. I scrambled out of bed, trying to piece together what happened. Bits of the night flashed in my mind, kissing outside, stumbling into the hotel, clothes hitting the floor. Amanda woke up, groaned, and blinked at me like she wasn't sure if I was real. Then she sat up, realizing the same thing I just did. Neither of us knew what to say. She broke the silence first, mumbling, "We can't tell anyone." No argument there. I grabbed my stuff, dressed in record time, and bolted. As I left the hotel, the reality of what I'd done hit me again. I had just slept with my cousin's wife. On their wedding night. I thought I could just pretend it never happened. Go back to life as usual. But guilt has a funny way of creeping up on you. Plus, Amanda kept texting me. She wanted to talk, which was the last thing I wanted. Family gatherings became minefields. At brunch the next day, Jake was all smiles, introducing Amanda to relatives like nothing was wrong. Amanda played the part perfectly, but every time our eyes met, there was this tension, like we both knew we were standing on a landmine. Jake didn't notice at first. But he wasn't an idiot. After a few weeks, he started asking weird questions. Like, "Hey, did you and Amanda get a chance to talk much at the wedding?" Or, "Amanda says you're really funny. Didn't realize you guys hit it off like that." I laughed it off, but inside, I was panicking. Amanda wasn't helping. She texted me late at night, saying she couldn't stop thinking about it. About me. I knew it was only a matter of time before something blew up. It happened during a family barbecue. Jake was drunk, laughing, grilling burgers, the whole family scene. Amanda was there, looking perfect as always, but I could tell she was tense. Jake pulled me aside, handed me a beer, and said, "We need to talk." My heart dropped. He didn't waste time. "Are you sleeping with Amanda?" I froze. No way to lie convincingly. I tried, though. "What? No, dude. Are you serious?" But he wasn't buying it. He'd seen the texts. I guess Amanda got sloppy. Things escalated fast. Shouting. Pushing. My uncle had to step in before it got physical. The whole family found out within minutes because, of course, they did. Jake didn't punch me, which honestly surprised me. But he did tell me to never speak to him, or Amanda, again. You'd think I'd feel guilty. Maybe a little. But mostly, I just felt relieved. No more sneaking around. No more texts at 2 a.m. It was over. Jake eventually divorced Amanda. Last I heard, she moved to another city. I haven't spoken to either of them since. I thought my ex was cheating, so I cheated first. Turns out I was wrong. It started with little things. Texts from unknown numbers, my ex, let's call her Jess, being glued to her phone more than usual, laughing at messages she wouldn't show me. We'd been dating for almost 2 years, and things were starting to feel off. She'd come home late from work, saying she was just hanging out with coworkers. That explanation worked the first couple of times, but when it became a weekly thing, my brain went into detective mode. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I did what any insecure idiot would do, I snooped. Checked her Instagram likes, her tagged photos, even scrolled through her Venmo history like some kind of broke FBI agent. Nothing solid. But you know how it is, once you think something's up, every little thing feels like proof. One night, I saw her texting someone with a smile she didn't save for me anymore. I didn't catch the name, just a quick glimpse of hearts in the chat. That was it. My brain filled in the blanks, she was definitely cheating. So, I decided if she was doing it, I might as well beat her at her own game. I didn't even feel guilty at first. I justified it to myself. She's doing it too, right? I'm just evening the score. So, I hit up this girl I'd met a few weeks prior, Kayla. She'd been flirting with me at a party, and I knew she'd be down. We met up for drinks, and it didn't take long before we ended up back at her place. It wasn't romantic or emotional. It was just spite. A middle finger to Jess, even though she had no idea. The next morning, waking up in Kayla's apartment, it hit me, this wasn't satisfying. It felt hollow, but I brushed it off. Whatever, I thought. Jess is probably doing worse. I didn't tell anyone. I figured I'd keep this little secret in my back pocket, just in case I needed to throw it in Jess's face. A couple of weeks later, Jess was acting even weirder, avoiding eye contact, being overly nice. I thought she was feeling guilty about her affair, so I decided to confront her. I was ready to catch her in a lie, throw my own cheating in her face, and walk away feeling like I'd won some twisted breakup battle. But when I sat her down and accused her, she just stared at me, completely confused. Cheating? What are you talking about? She asked. I pressed harder, mentioned the texts, the late nights, the suspicious smiles. That's when she broke down, not because she was guilty of cheating, but because she was hurt I thought that about her. Turns out, she wasn't cheating. The late nights? She was planning a surprise birthday party for me with her friends from out of town. The texts? Group chats about decorations, a custom gift she'd ordered, and coordinating with people I hadn't seen in years. The suspicious smiles? She was excited about making it perfect. She even pulled out her phone, showing me the messages. And there it was, proof I'd been wrong the whole time. I just sat there, feeling like the biggest idiot on earth. Now I had a new problem, I'd cheated on her for absolutely no reason. She hadn't done anything wrong, but I had. For a couple of days, I debated whether to confess. Maybe I could just ride it out, pretend nothing happened. But the guilt was eating me alive, and every time she smiled at me, it felt worse. So, I told her. She went completely silent. No yelling, no crying, just that cold, blank stare that hits harder than any argument. After a long pause, she simply said, "Get out." And that was it. No dramatic fight, no second chances. Just done. I wasn't sorry for cheating. I was sorry for not trusting her. That's what ruined everything. It wasn't Kayla or the one-night stand, it was my own insecurity, my inability to communicate, and the fact that I let my paranoia run the show. After we broke up, I thought about it a lot. I realized how easy it is to convince yourself someone's the villain just so you can justify being the worst version of yourself. I never reached out to Jess again. She didn't deserve to hear some half-assed apology. And Kayla? That fizzled out immediately. It was never about her anyway.